Now that the, what were they called, ghoul purge bounties have gone, the only way to get the blueprint from this is from the ghouls themselves. I purposely waited until we've seen what's happened to see how they get. So the ghouls drop the blueprint for this, or it's 210 platinum from the marketplace. But to build it, it will require 75 of that ragdoll stuff and 15 ferrous steel alloy, which means you have to have leveled up the Ostrom standing to be able to get the blueprint for that stuff. So building this can be time consuming. And considering its biggest rival is either the Cyprus Prime, which, to be fair, this does way more damage than, but the Cyprus does have way more crit, or even the Latron Prime, which, again, this does much more damage, but this time does more crit, but has a smaller crit multiplier with a much slower fire rate. I did find the biggest problem with the Quartakk, or however that is pronounced, has to be its fire rate is really slow. It's got a pretty nice sized magazine, but it's just too slow. Having a 19% crit chance with a 27% status chance means building this thing, aiming more towards status than crit, is kind of weird as well, considering things like the aforementioned Cyprus Prime has a 25% status chance, but a 30% crit chance. It does only have a 2 times multiplier, but it just seemed to be slightly better than this, but this, damage-wise, was the best of all three. But of course, adding things like Point Strike and Vital Sense will take it to 47.5% crit with a 5.1 times multiplier. Throw Argon Scope, which adds 135% crit chance on headshots, but only for 9 seconds. And of course, Bladed Rounds on top of that, which will add another 120% crit damage. This thing was actually a pretty lethal beast. But to fit that kind of combination, and you will have to forma this at least once, possibly twice, because the best thing about this was the fact that it came with 2 V polarities, meaning that the big mods can go in there and you can very easily fit pretty decent builds on this without actually having to forma it. Because it also has a 27% status chance, if you want to fit the elemental combo mods in here, you will have to add 2 dashes, but to be fair, I think adding 2 Vs, and you might be able to get away with not adding a dash then, is probably the best way to go for this. It depends if you are building it for crit using Bladed Rounds, Argon Scope, Point Strike, Vital Sense kind of mods, or whether you're going for Thermite rounds, High Voltage, Rhyme rounds, even down to Malignant Force, which will give it a 99.1% status chance, but then trying to actually fit a crit build onto this, well, it can be kind of problematic, because then you've only got 2 empty slots if you put Serration and of course Split Chamber in there for a status build. So building this one is one of those where it's got just enough crit that it's worth building for crit, but it also has just enough status that you can also build it towards status. Kind of like the Cyprus Prime had, which is where things get weird, picking the Cyprus Prime over the Quartakk, because though this does probably way more damage, the Cyprus Prime has the crit side down to this, and they did in, I think it was yesterday's hotfix 22.8.2, increase the overall size of it when you have it in your hands. They've added a 0.5 meter punch through, which for close range, or even at long range if you get the enemies to line up nicely, can actually work through pretty well. And they've also added a ragdoll on death, so visually it's way more fun to use this than things like the Cyprus Prime, but it can't be overlooked that the Cyprus Prime is a thing and is obviously way better than this. But this, for everything kind of low level to mid level, is just more fun because of the punch through and the ragdoll now over the Cyprus Prime, which is still going to maintain its higher level stuff or higher level mission advantage, whereas this is just more fun for those lower level missions. Way more fun. Anyway, we'll leave this off here for now. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch yous next time.